So last night in our youth group, we had a discussion on the modern philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. And truth be told, the reason that we had this conversation is because we had a brainstorming class earlier in the year about what topics we would like to discuss. And one of the guys in our group brought up Nietzsche. He'd seen a video on the internet about Nietzsche and thought that it would be good to discuss at church. Why not, right? So I was really excited about this because I think it's important for young people to, especially young people of faith, to be introduced to the ideas of Nietzsche. Why? Because many people see Nietzsche as the father of modern atheism, or one of the great fathers of modern atheism anyway. Nietzsche is probably best known for the statement, God is dead, God remains dead, and we killed him. So here you begin to see atheism in the life of Nietzsche. Well, Nietzsche is a very complicated figure. Many people don't think that Nietzsche was a real atheist, that he could never break away from his spiritual past. He grew up as a Lutheran pastor, or he grew up as the son of a Lutheran pastor, excuse me, and he even studied theology during his early life and into his early 20s. And then he read a book called The World as Will and Representation by Arthur Schopenhauer. And this changed his life. This took him down the road towards denying God, towards saying God is dead. And Schopenhauer's thesis, I think, is kind of a social Darwin idea, where the world has this will to survive. All of the species in the world have a will to survive, which often puts animals and humans over and against others for this survival, kind of a survival of the fittest idea, right? Well, Nietzsche sees this and says there's truth in that, but Nietzsche takes it a step further and says it's not just this will to survive, it's this will to power. All humans are consumed with this will to power, which puts us over and against others. The way that we get power is by taking it from others. So there's kind of this lack of a concern for the victims of culture. And we begin to see this when the main focus of the class was Nietzsche's Dionysus versus the crucified, where Nietzsche compares Dionysus with Jesus, the crucified. Well, Nietzsche loves Greek myth, so he looks to this myth of Dionysus, and Dionysus has this myth about him where he goes to Thebes, and his cousin Pentheus is the ruler of Thebes. Dionysus is this Greek god of wine and madness. Anyway, he goes to Thebes, and the people refuse to believe that he is a god. In fact, they refuse to believe that he is the son of Zeus. And this enrages Dionysus, right? He ends up, since he's the god of ritual madness and wine, he ends up making the women of Thebes, even Pentheus's own mother, mad. And they end up seeing Pentheus as a wild animal. And they circle around Pentheus, and they end up killing him and eating him. So you've got cannibalism, right? So there's this collective violence over and against Pentheus. Well, Nietzsche sees this as the way that the world works. This is the will to survive. Dionysus has the will to survive, not just the will to survive, but the will to power. And Nietzsche ends up seeing the world through the lens of Dionysus. Well, he compares Dionysus with Jesus, the crucified. And Jesus ends up not defending himself, not having this will to power, this will to survive, but this will to give. As Jesus hangs on the cross, Jesus says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Jesus' disciples end up having this argument about who amongst them is the greatest, right? And Jesus says, that's not what this is about. This isn't about who's the greatest. He says, the greatest among you will be the one who serves. And Nietzsche sees this, and it drives him mad. It makes him angry. He says, this is not the way that the world works. If you follow Christ, you will have this slave mentality. And Nietzsche, I think he gets it. I think that there is truth in his critique of Christianity. I mean, Jesus, it's not that Jesus doesn't see the way the world is. I think he gets this social Darwin idea. I think he gets it perfectly. But he sees that as wrong. He sees this will to power as something that's wrong with the world, as an injustice in the world, and seeks to transform that injustice into something else. And the only way that Jesus can see to do that is through the love to serve, love to forgive. Not the love for power, but the love to serve. And so what I love about Nietzsche is that I think that he sets these options before us. Dionysus versus the crucified. Nietzsche says this: Dionysus versus the crucified. There you have the antithesis. There are the options. It is not a difference in regard to their martyrdom, it's a difference in the meaning of it. It's a difference in the interpretation of it. One is Jesus tries to get us to see the world through the lens, through the eyes of the victim. Dionysus tries to get us to see the world through the eyes of the powerful. And another quote from Nietzsche, these are both from The Will to Power, his book. Through Christianity, the individual was made so important, so absolute, that he could no longer be sacrificed. But the species endures only through human sacrifice. Genuine charity demands sacrifice for the good of the species. It is hard, it is full of self-overcoming because it needs human sacrifice. And this pseudo-humaneness called Christianity wants to establish that no one should be sacrificed. I think Nietzsche gets it. I think he understands what's going on perfectly, like better than anybody else before him actually understood what these options are. I just think that he chooses the wrong path. And I think this, more than anything else, is what causes him to go mad, because he could never break away from the God in Jesus that embraces everyone, even those who claim to kill God. Jesus hangs on the cross and says, Father, forgive them. I think that Nietzsche is embraced by this, and it drives him mad because he fights so much against it. Anyway, that's my interpretation. It could be wrong. So those were our thoughts on Nietzsche and a little bit of atheism and this distinction between Christ and Dionysus. Most of us fall somewhere in the middle between these, but these are the examples, the extreme examples. So love to hear your thoughts. Let me know. Bye-bye.